on the Crimson Tide Network from Learfield, live from Baumhower's Victory in Vestavia Hills, Alabama. Welcome to Crimson Tide Rewind, presented by Bud Light. It's for the fans. Golden Flake, the official potato chip of the Alabama Crimson Tide, and by Baumhower's Victory Grille, legendary fun, legendary food, and the official watch party location of the Crimson Tide. Now live, this is Crimson Tide Rewind. Here's Roger Hoover.
Roll Tide and welcome to Crimson Tide Rewind, presented by Bud Light. Welcome everybody, this is Roger Hoover filling in for Eli Gold, joined by former Crimson Tide linebacker Cory Reamer and a lot of Alabama fans here at Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills after an Iron Bowl victory. Roll Tide, everyone.
Hey, roll tide, everybody. Hey, how about that? That's a good way. I can't believe it's already the end of the season. I mean, how fast did this go by? It's great to get a win in the Iron Bowl. Always is a great time to get a win. It was a exciting game. It was a fun one to watch. There was a lot went on, but I thought Alabama came out and played extremely well and looked really good against an Auburn offense that had a lot of success in the running game against a lot of other teams and had success on Saturday. But they were able to go out there and find a way to get the win.
Crimson Tide pick up a 49-27 victory over the Auburn Tigers to close out the regular season with 10 wins and 2 losses. So the Crimson Tide, there was so much discussion about could Alabama take care of business, even knowing that you weren't going to be the SEC West champion, you weren't going to have the opportunity to go to Atlanta and play for an SEC championship. Alabama did take care of business.
Yeah, they did, and that's the only thing you can do is, and there's a lot of still up in the air. We've seen a lot of dominoes fall over the last couple of weeks, and there's still a very big faction of people that are out there that are hoping and praying that there might be something that happens. You even heard Coach Saban talk about it in the post-game press conference. He was kind of doing a little campaigning for us, just in case the other dominoes do fall and there is a shot for us to make it to the postseason. But all else being said, if that doesn't end up being the case, we obviously know we can't make it to Atlanta. The college football playoff is still up in the air. Still a huge season, 15 straight years of Alabama having 10 wins. I mean, that's a huge accomplishment. There's a lot of programs that are out there that wish they could say they've had a run that goes on that long. And you got to give it to these guys. After all that fell apart through the middle of the season when Bryce goes down and had a couple losses and the things that they set out to accomplish at the beginning of the season got removed, and they still came out and really finished the year strong, which you got to give a lot of props to them for remaining focused, and the guys that obviously are going to have an opportunity to go play beyond their college careers, seniors that are graduating. It could be easily folded in because there was a lot of pressure for this team to go out there and accomplish a lot of things. A lot of talk during the offseason, preseason. Expectations were high for this team with who we had coming back, the playmakers that we had on both sides of the ball, and sometimes the ball just doesn't bounce your way, and you lose 2 games by a combined total of 4 points on the road both times. It says a lot about this team and how they fought back and still ended up finding a way to get 10 wins on the year.
So the Crimson Tide finished the regular season 10-2 with a 49-27 win over Auburn in the Iron Bowl. We'll be talking all about the Iron Bowl, plus really all about this Alabama football season and what is our final edition of Crimson Tide Rewind for the season here on Monday nights from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills. Coming up next week, we will start our basketball edition of Hey Coach coming up from Tuscaloosa at Baumhower's Victory Grille at 6 p.m. But tonight we're going to be talking Crimson Tide football. And if you'd like to join us on the show this evening, give us a call on the Yellowhammer Brewing Hotline at 877-202-BAMA. Stay tuned for more. It's Crimson Tide Rewind live from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Rice gets the snap, rolling to his right as he's flushed, heading for the pylon, get the race, wins the race, touchdown Alabama.
Crimson Tide winners in the Iron Bowl for a third straight season, and the Crimson Tide win 49-27 over the Auburn Tigers in Tuscaloosa. If you'd like to join us on Crimson Tide Rewind tonight, give us a call on the Yellowhammer Brewing Hotline at 877-202-BAMA, and that's where we're going to go now for our first call that's presented by Alabama 811. Alabama 811, reminding you to call 811 before you dig to know what's below, and we will first go to Pace, Florida, where Parker gives us a call. He's the Pee-wee of the postgame. Parker, who joins us now. Roll Tide, Parker.
Roll Tide, Roger. How are you, my friend?
I am very well. Good to be back from Portland with a lot of victories for Alabama over this past weekend.
Man, and you on the call on that final play of the game. That game was giving me a heart attack. Yeah.
Yeah, we were certainly glad to get out of there with a win. It was a great feeling beating number 1 North Carolina yesterday, but thank you.
It was, and great job. Hopefully the cards will fall on our table, but it was just. It's always good to beat Auburn, and it made me feel so good to hear Eli on the pregame show Saturday. That put a smile on my face.
I agree. I think for all of us it did. He's making a lot of progress. That's what he shared in our pregame segment. And if you missed Eli's visit with Chris Stewart, make sure you go to the Crimson Tide Sports Network on YouTube. You can find that clip. They had a great conversation, and Eli said he had hoped originally to come back for the Iron Bowl, but now he's hoping to come back for the A-Day game coming up this spring, and hopefully back on this show, Crimson Tide Rewind, coming up next year. So that was certainly great news to hear.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I mean, we've been missing Eli all season in a lot of different areas. I mean, without him here, without him calling the games on Saturdays, we just hope that he continues to improve and is able to make a recovery where he can come back and do this. I mean, you've done a great job filling in for him this year. I don't want to discredit you at all, but Eli's a special person to a lot of people, especially a lot of Alabama fans. So hopefully he has a speedy recovery. He's able to make it back next season.
Absolutely. He's the best. Well, Parker, thank you for the call. Roll Tide. All right, that is Parker from Pace, Florida. He just gave us a call on the Yellowhammer Brewing Hotline at 877-202-BAMA, and that's where you can join us as well. This is Crimson Tide Rewind as we come to you live tonight from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
JoJo Earl in motion to the right side. Bryce gets the snap, looks right, looks left, has a man catch made. McClellan. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown, Alabama. 10-yard touchdown play. Bryce to Chase, and the Tide is on top for the first time today.
I want to remind you to keep up with everything Alabama with the Alabama Crimson Tide mobile app presented by Cadence Bank, available at the App Store and Google Play. Download the Alabama Crimson Tide mobile app now for free. We just heard the highlight of Chase McClellan's touchdown catch. He also rushed the ball for 44 yards, and it was great to have Jahmyr Gibbs back healthy. It just seemed like this Alabama offense, Cory especially, was firing on all cylinders last Saturday.
Yeah, it was. I think it was a culmination of a few things. One of them being the fact that we've had so much success in the running game the last couple of weeks, and then, with Jace McClellan, with Gibbs being out, they both come back. Now you've got to worry about a two-headed monster in the backfield where up until that point, this season, we've been using those two guys kind of in the same light, and now we've kind of got something that separates the two of them in their styles of the way they like to run or being used in the offense. And we saw not only did the running game continue to be effective on Saturday, but it opened up a lot of the playbook, which we've been talking about all season. If we could just get that running game going where you get those 3, 4, 5 yards on first and second down and shorten up the down and distance on third down, the play action pass comes into effect, and we saw us have a lot of success with that on this past Saturday. Great to see both of those guys, really getting their legs moving and having a lot of continued success in the running game. Something we've been dying to see for a lot of this season. I mean, for the first 8 games of the year, we were just talking about, man, if we could just get that running game going, it's just going to open up this offense and take off so much pressure from Bryce Young, and we saw it do exactly that on Saturday.
And once again, the offensive line keeps getting better and better.
Yeah, they did. J.C. Latham and Tyler Steen did a phenomenal job on the edges, and all those guys in the middle doing a phenomenal job of protecting the pocket in the passing game, but also opening up a lot of run lanes in the running game. So they did a phenomenal job against a pretty good, productive Auburn defensive front. I mean, they've been able to give some offenses some trouble this year, especially with Hall on the edge. I know he had a little injury at some point in the game, but they've got plenty of athletes and are well coached, and Alabama's offensive line has come a long way. It took a while for them to really put probably one of their better games together, but no better time than in the Iron Bowl is when you want to see those guys really put it all together.
And Bryce Young was effective throwing the football, 343 yards, 3 touchdowns. He included 9 receivers in his passing attack, including Robbie Utes, 2 catches, 49 yards.
I saw that. I'm excited to see everybody get involved, especially when Robbie Utes gets involved. And had some big plays, too. They weren't just little dink and dunks. He was able to turn and make some plays up the field and lower his shoulder and get some extra yardage, some yard after catch. I'm sure his average, yak average, only went up after this weekend. Good to see all the guys get involved. Jermaine Burton had a huge game. Cory Brooks had another phenomenal game. I think one of the things is that there were still a lot of times we were looking for some receivers to get some separation, which is why so many receivers get involved. That's why you're seeing 9 guys catch it. He hasn't had that one guy this season, which we're so used to seeing from these Alabama teams, and quarterbacks just having that one receiver that you can always go to, that Jamison Williams or that Jalen Waddle or Devontae Smith, that old reliable, that faithful. If it's third and whatever down the distance, I don't care if they've got 2 guys on him, I'm throwing it to him because I know he's going to make that catch. That just hadn't been the case this season, so we've had to utilize a lot of different players in this wide receiver core, and I thought another good thing they did this weekend was they held on to the football. They were able to bring it in and maintain the catch all the way to the ground and not dropping footballs, which is always good to see.
Part of a fun Iron Bowl victory for the Crimson Tide, 49-27 over the Auburn Tigers. Again, if you'd like to join us on the show tonight, give us a call on the Yellowhammer Brewing Hotline, 877-202-BAMA. We're going to be talking about the Iron Bowl, talking about the season as a whole as well for the Alabama Crimson Tide, finishing the regular season 10-2 with Saturday's victory in the Iron Bowl. We'll continue with more in just a moment. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Two tight ends right for Auburn. The eye set. They'll go option left side. They'll get it to Hunter. He'll get to the edge. He lost the football. It's on the deck. Who's got it? I believe it's Alabama. It is. It's DJ Dale in the title takeover in Auburn territory.
If you'd like to be a part of tonight's Crimson Tide Rewind show, submit your question to Cory Reamer on the Alabama Media Group Twitter line at UA_CTSN. That's brought to you by AL.com, your source for SEC sports. And that highlight we just heard, we called that our turning point of the game in the postgame show on Saturday, because once Alabama picked up that fumble, after that, really never looked back. It was already a 14-7 lead at that point, but that really was the moment where this game was closed out by the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, and you just look at what that had, how that had an effect on this game. Turnovers, and you look at what Alabama up to this point in the season, what Alabama was in the turnover ratio, and that just shows you how difficult it is to win football games when you're negative in the turnover ratio battle, and you can't afford to be that. If you want to win ball games in this league, you've got to create more turnovers than you give away. And that turnover right there was a complete changing point in this football game, because Auburn was having success, and they were out there executing their game plan extremely well with the three-headed monster with Jarquez Hunter, Tank Bigsby, and Robbie Ashford in the backfield, and the way that they were drawing up their running plays and executing them very, very well. They were moving the football pretty effectively early on. And if not for that turnover, that they might go down and score another touchdown and even things up, and we were able to capitalize. Not only were we able to create turnovers, we were able to capitalize on two of them and put points on the board from it. It's huge in a football game, especially one of this magnitude. You've got to be able to not only create them, but also get points, whether it's field goal or touchdown. If you can do that, you've got a pretty good chance to win the ball game, no matter what.
Speaking of big tackles in this game, how about Hoover High's Will Reichert?
Yeah, the highlight reel that is Will Reichert. Running down on the kickoff and making a huge stop on kickoff. It was one of my favorite moments, and he wanted every bit of it too. He got up and he had a little stare down for the guy as well, and you could tell he was excited to be able to make a play like that, because kickers don't get that opportunity very much, and usually when you see a kicker coming down and be involved with a tackle, it's usually not a very good look for the kicker. Yeah, he's usually the one getting run over. There's not many of them that come down and lay the wood. I would even categorize that hit as laying the wood for Will Reichert. All 112 pounds of him, just bringing every little bit that he had and getting the guy on the ground, and he was pumped. The sideline was going nuts too.
Do you even see it in practice very much?
No, you don't see kickers anywhere in practice. They're usually doing yoga in the barn, and you don't ever hear anything from them until the very end, when we coach is like, all right, if we can make this field goal, we don't have to condition, and they come out and miss it, and we got to run. It's like, what have y'all been doing all day? You literally have not had any part of this practice, and you can literally save us all from having to run more than we've already had to run this practice, and you missed this field goal. Now we got to run extra because of you. Where have you been? What have y'all been doing? You find out they've been, playing patty cake inside. So you don't see kickers doing
their namaste.
I love kickers. I love them. Hey, they're crucial. They are. Will Reichert's one of the best ones that we've ever had, but you see a guy, we had one, was it Cade Foster that we had a few years ago, that was like, he'd kick the football off and he'd be the first one down there making tackles. You'd love to see that. I wouldn't say that Cade Foster and Will Reichert are built the same, but they're pretty close.
Are you still in touch with any of your kickers when you played
Yeah,
Alabama?
well,
Are you still good friends? Or?
P.J. Fitzgerald and Lee Tiffin and Brian Selman, we all talked to Brian Selman a pretty good bit. We had a good relationship because I was the up back on the punt team, so had to deal with all those specialists a decent amount. But we always got to keep them in check, keep them in their place a little bit.
That's certainly true, and great to see that for Will Reichert on Saturday.
And you hear that coming from me as a mode of jealousy, because we're out there just banging heads there in practice, and I just wish I was smart enough to have been a specialist or a long snapper instead of playing linebacker.
So 2 days were nothing for them.
Yeah,
now we don't even have 2 days.
Just hanging out in the cold tub, man. Just getting their ice cream and getting the cold tub. It was tough.
It's a really tough life. Well, we hope for some more great moments from Will Reichert coming up this season. As the Crimson Tide get ready for bowl season, or possibly an opportunity to play in the college football playoff. We'll talk more about that when we return. This is Crimson Tide Rewind, and this is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Bryce with a lot of time, looking downfield, firing, catches made, Law, first down and more, gets to midfield, gets to the 45 of Auburn, gets to the 40, and gets down to the 35-yard line. A huge bank first down. Butch tells me 39 yards, and Bama moves the sticks again.
Hey, if you'd like to join us on Crimson Tide Rewind, you can submit a question to Cory Reamer on the Alabama Media Group Twitter line at UA_CTSN. That's brought to you by AL.com, your source for SEC sports. And we still have some time to take some calls as well on the Yellowhammer Brewing Hotline at 877-202-BAMA as the Alabama Crimson Tide closed out the regular season with 10 wins compared to 2 losses. And we touched on it a little bit earlier as we kind of recap the entire season on our final Crimson Tide Rewind show tonight. Interesting journey this team went on. How much did the injury for Bryce Young in the Arkansas game change the journey that this team went on?
Yeah, I think it definitely had an impact. But I mean, even before that, the Texas game, this was a tough road schedule for this team this season. But Bryce going down was definitely had an impact. And I thought Jalen Milroe came in for that Arkansas game and played, he played extremely well. I thought he picked up the pace and did a really good job. And I think the next week, who was it? A&M comes out, and we talked about it on this show. And I felt like that point when he knows he's the starter at that point. You're going through the full week of practice knowing you're the starter. Game plan's being implemented. It's a completely different situation for you to be in as knowing you're the guy going into that game. And I think at first, obviously it's your first start. It's a big moment at home against a game that everybody was anticipating going into the season because Texas A&M had such high expectations for their season. But coming out and trying to do a little bit too much, but he ended up settling down and getting us the victory, which was great. But, no knock on Jalen Milroe, but Bryce Young is obviously something special. And it definitely hurts. You look at what his performance was from that shoulder injury and not necessarily the Tennessee game. I thought he played extremely well the Tennessee game. But then the next couple of games, it just seemed like you could tell it didn't feel great. And he was missing some throws. His timing was a little bit off. And LSU was another game that we go down there and just didn't execute very well. We made a lot of mistakes. And I think that's been the theme of this season is, they've really done a lot of really good things, this team has, but they've also made some mistakes that have cost them some field position, turnovers, penalties, all of it. And then when you add all that up and you're doing that the week in and week out, at some point it's going to come back and bite you. And we leaned heavily on Bryce Young this season. Without him this year, we would not be sitting at 10-2. But he was able to carry this team for a long time, as long as he possibly could. And unfortunately, we had a couple games that came down to the last play and just couldn't get enough to get the win. But you can't say enough about how much of a competitor he is, because even the games that when he was hurt and he got hurt, he was announced that he was going to be out. He was trying to do everything he could to come back in and play. Even at the end of that, what was it? His Tennessee game, he wanted to go in, or. It was one of those.
He wanted to come back in an A&M
game. Yes. That's what it was.
Yeah.
A&M game when we were down, you could just see him on the sideline. He was just wanting to be in there, try to help his team, get some victories. There's a lot of pressure on this team to come out there and play, and a lot of pressure on Bryce as a reigning Heisman Trophy winner. Everybody's watching what you're doing, and I think he lived up to expectations. He played extremely well.
We will go now. As I mentioned, you can ask us a question. We have a lot of video streams going on all social media outlets for the Crimson Tide Sports Network, including from Facebook, where Steve Dean asked us, Cory, what is the real scenario for Bama to get in the college football playoff? We discussed this a lot in our postgame show on Saturday, and there still is a path for Alabama to work in there, but a lot has to happen coming up this Saturday.
Yeah, I think the best case scenario is that you get TCU loses to Kansas State. And then even if that's the only case, you're looking at wherever Alabama comes out in the college football playoff tomorrow. There was a case to be made that Alabama, even with 2 losses, is going to be ahead of Ohio State after what happened to them this past weekend against Michigan, just getting absolutely throttled, not being able to stay with them at the end of the game. It was a close game for a lot of it. And then they ended up just getting worn down by a Michigan team that looks really, really strong. At home, though, for Ohio State to get embarrassed the way that they did, that might help Alabama out. If it was a close game, if that was a field goal, it comes down to a last-second kick or something like that, and they lose, I don't think we're having this conversation. But now the way that Ohio State lost, I think that only helps Alabama the way that we've lost 2 games against 2 teams that – I think the only thing that hurts us is that Tennessee turns around and got beat by South Carolina pretty badly, and then LSU turns around, which it helped us, but it also hurt us. The fact that they got beat by Texas A&M
kind of hurt Tennessee too.
Yeah, it did. I mean, it hurts. There's so many moving parts, but then I think that the other factor is I guess you got Georgia, Michigan. Have they said who's 3 and 4? I think USC. I think
USC, TCU.
USC, Utah. You've got this coming weekend. Who Utah got the best of USC earlier in the season. So if you get 2 spots that open up, if USC loses, I think they're out. And I think if TCU loses, there's still maybe a chance. If TCU loses and USC loses, then there's still a chance that TCU stays in, given that they've been able to defy a lot of odds. But their wins don't look good either. They've had to really come back and beat a lot of teams that really don't have strong records. So it's really going to come down to the playoff committee of an eye test of being able to put us in. But there is a chance. The best thing that would happen is both of those teams loses. I think if Michigan loses, it doesn't matter. They're in. I think if Georgia loses, it doesn't matter. They're going to be in. But the other 2 teams, if they both lose, I think there's a real shot that Alabama somehow finds a way in.
So on Friday night, go Utah. On Saturday morning, go Kansas State against TCU.
Yeah, the good thing is this Alabama team, I feel like it could be one of those things where it's good timing because, early in the season, they didn't look like a team that deserved to be, honestly, in the playoffs. Just the way that they were playing, they weren't putting teams away. They weren't playing complimentary football. They didn't put together a really full game. But the way that they've played the last few weeks, kind of since that weight's been lifted off of them, they've really played a lot better on both sides of the football, especially on the offensive side. Just you saw this past weekend what Alabama was doing in terms of changing some of their formations up with some motions and giving some different looks, trying to create some confusion for Auburn's defense, and had a lot of success both in the running and the passing game. You've got a lot of playmakers, and they were out there having fun. It's just we talked about it part the way through this season. It just didn't seem like they were more worried about making mistakes than going out there and just winning ball games and having a good time. And now these last few games, these last 3 or 4 games that we've seen from them, it looks like a completely different football team. And they're good. There's plenty of talent out there. There's no doubt about it. The funny thing is that if you ask odds makers, you put Alabama versus Georgia, what's the spread going to be? Or if you put TCU versus Georgia, what's the spread going to be? And they're going to put Alabama is going to be a lot closer matchup for any of those teams that are in the playoff versus a couple teams that might even make it in. But you can't take away from the fact that TCU has been able to go unscathed through the regular season. You got to put a lot of respect on them for being able to do that. And USC, we finally got the national attention this past weekend against Notre Dame in a primetime game. Everybody got to see what Caleb Williams, their quarterback, is all about, and he lived up to the bill.
Probably the Heisman winner.
He probably wrote his Heisman ticket on Saturday. There's no doubt about it, the way he played. But I tell you, if you put Alabama and USC in a matchup on a neutral site, who's going to be favored in that game? I guarantee you I don't think it's going to be USC. I just don't think that you put USC's defensive and offensive line up against Alabama's or Georgia's. It's going to be a massacre. It's not even going to be close. But that's just the way it is, the way conferences are and the way schedules align. It's just the way it is. You got to give credit to the teams that have been able to go out there and win the ball games that they're supposed to win. Alabama with 2 losses. You got hope and a prayer. We were able to win this past weekend to go 10-2, and then we'll just wait and see what happens.
It's going to be fascinating. The Crimson Tide close out the regular season at 10-2 thanks to the strength of an Iron Bowl victory, 49-27 over the Auburn Tigers. We're coming to you live tonight from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills, and you can celebrate 40 years of Baumhower's this fall with new flavors including Alabama hot chicken, fajita wraps, and legendary buffalo wings. Baumhower's Victory Grille, legendary fun, legendary food. When we come back, we'll hear from the head coach of the Crimson Tide, Nick Saban, with a amusing start to his postgame press conference on Saturday. More on that when we return. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. Iron Bowl victory, 49-27 over Auburn on Saturday. And you may have noticed Coach Saban had a little bit of a bloody cheek throughout the ball game that he talked about as he started his post-game press conference.
And, you know, I took one of the hardest hits of the entire game. And unlike some of our players who had to go to the medical tent, like I always say, they don't make them like they used to. So, no, but I was really proud of our team this whole season, actually, to win 10 games, to go through a rough patch when Bryce was hurt. Now he's healthy again, which makes us a different kind of team, I think. You know, it's a great win in the Iron Bowl for our players. It's great that they won 10 games, but I think one of the things that I'm most proud of is the fact that when everybody thought they were out of it, and there was a lot of naysayers out there, that this team didn't give up on themselves. They didn't give up on each other. They kept fighting and won some tough games to finish the season. So I'm really proud of the fact that everybody hung in there, stayed together, and continued to try to get better. And we've had a lot of injuries, had a lot of guys that missed some time, so gave other people opportunities, but I'm really proud of the way that we finished. I know I got asked about the playoffs out there, but, you know, unbeknownst to me, I didn't know who won, who lost, or anything else. You know, it's a great opportunity for our team to be considered. I think we lost 2 games on the road against 2 top 10 teams by 4 points. So we are a good football team, and hopefully people will recognize that.
And that was head coach Nick Saban on Saturday in Tuscaloosa. And again, making the joke, he at first said, you ought to see the other guy.
Yeah.
You know, when he showed that. I'm kind of amazed that that doesn't happen more. Shoulder pads running into people's faces.
He's taken a few shots.
Sidelines, yeah.
He's taken a few shots this year. You saw him, I can't remember, I think it was the Ole Miss game. Somebody got him on the sideline. He goes down, hits the deck on the somebody running over there on the sideline, taking his feet out from underneath him. He's, you know, for a guy that's paying attention to the football game, you would think that he'd have some awareness to get out of the way when the football's coming in his direction.
Where's the get back, coach?
Yeah, exactly. Scott Cochran needs to come back just to be a bodyguard for Coach Saban. You saw, I don't know if you saw it on Sean McVay from the Rams. He took one to the cheek on Sunday as well. As these coaches are just having no awareness. You know, they're out there trying to coach up these guys to be paying attention to what's going on, keep your head on a swivel, and it seems like they just were in la-la land. Coach just didn't even know what was going on.
Well, wherever Coach Saban was, I like
the fact that I like
great result, of course, on Saturday.
I like the fact that he didn't even wipe it off. It's just like he's going to wear it like a badge of honor. He didn't even get it cleaned up the whole game. You know, he wanted to make sure his players saw how tough he was.
He's tough.
He's
a winner.
He is.
You know who else is a winner? Onward Reserve. They are the official apparel provider of the Crimson Tide Sports Network. They have given us so much great gear this year. Visit onwardreserve.com for all of your game day apparel. Live authentically with Onward Reserve. You're listening to Crimson Tide Rewind. It's presented by Bud Light. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
snap. Gosey on little bubble screen. Hold it. 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown. Alabama adds to its lead. 34-14, 54 seconds to go. Trayshawn Holden from 27 yards out adds to the Alabama advantage.
That was Bryce Young's third touchdown pass of the Iron Bowl as Alabama rolls to victory 49-27 over Auburn. Time to take a look at the prescription for success. It's presented by Payless Drugs, your locally owned family pharmacy with 4 locations in Birmingham. Payless can handle your prescriptions, over-the-counter solutions, and home delivery. Payless at mynewpharmacy.com. And typically we're always talking about the next game when we talk about the prescription for success. But what about just around the program this week, as we still don't know until Sunday what the bowl destination or the playoff destination may be like, and then how to refocus after that?
Yeah, I mean, this is a sit and wait kind of week. This is one that you got to come in. There's, you don't have a game this Saturday, which is, unusual for this team. A lot of these players that have been around this program for a long time not to be playing on Championship Saturday. So now we got to play the waiting game and just see what happens, see how the deck comes out and what happens throughout Saturday's games, and then Sunday's selection show of what's going to be the case, where this destination is going to be for this Alabama team. And I think we'll have a pretty good idea depending on how some of these games unfold. It might answer some questions pretty early, but there's also still a chance, like we talked about. There's those scenarios that are out there where there might be some hope left, coming into Sunday. But I think the main thing is you saw a lot of young guys that played a very integral role on this team this year. And one that I was just extremely impressed by, Kendrick Law, in the last few games of coming out there and being extremely effective. And we saw him with a big catch on Saturday, but also in some of these games, these other games, going out there and understanding the concepts of zone defenses, finding holes, getting open, being an open target for Bryce Young, going out there and making plays. The biggest thing for now going forward, no matter where we end up, should it be in a playoff, that's great. We got something to play for. If it turns out to be a New Year's Six game, we still have a lot to play for, but this is a huge window of opportunity for a lot of these young guys that are going to be coming back next year. You don't know what's going to happen with some of these, the Will Andersons and Bryce Youngs. You assume this is going to be their last season in Tuscaloosa. They've got some pretty good high draft grades, and Coach Saban would probably encourage them to be, looking towards the NFL. You don't know if they're going to play in the bowl game or if they're going to opt out. It depends. I feel like both of these guys are competitors and love these teams so much that we might see them in the bowl situation, especially if it's a New Year's Six bowl. But for these young guys, these next few weeks, the opportunities they're going to get to go out there and get practice and start preparing for the next season now that this one's over with is huge. And some people don't take advantage of this. Some people don't have the opportunity to. If you don't make bowl games, you don't get these extra reps, these extra practices in to go ahead and start preparing for next season. But that's going to be the biggest thing. You got starts in the weight room, conditioning, and then going out there and getting practice and getting some reps against guys that are high caliber players. You can only get better by going out there and taking these practices seriously. You only get 14 of them, I think. And it's important to go out there and take advantage of all of them, even though you really don't want to. You're kind of ready for the season to wind down. But if you can get some leadership on this team to really take advantage of the opportunity that we have to utilize the next month or so of practice, it's going to pay dividends for us next season, starting right now.
Starting right now, indeed. And when we come back, we will talk about what's on tap next for the Crimson Tide as we start to wrap up this year of shows for Crimson Tide Rewind. We're live from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills, and this is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. What's on tap next for Bama is brought to you by Bud Light. Bud Light proudly welcomes back Tide fans to Bryant-Denny Stadium. This year, Bud Light is for the fans. And when we're talking about football, we kind of hit on it in our last segment. Still a lot of unknowns until Sunday with the college football playoff selection show, and then the bowl games will be announced after that. So we still don't know what the bowl destination or the playoff destination may look like for this team. But I think we can all agree this was a football team that, especially from the second half of the Ole Miss game on, started playing some really good football.
Yeah, you got to give a lot of credit to this team. It was a 10-2 season. Let's don't lose sight of it. There was a lot more of heartbreak moments this year and a lot closer games than we've come to expect out of these Alabama teams. But still a good season from any perspective that you look at it. Proud of this team for the way they were able to compete, especially after losing the ability to go play in the SEC championship. And like we talked about earlier, the goals that they had set out, not being able to accomplish those, still coming out there and finishing strong, and able to get those last few wins and look good doing it. They were able to put together a lot of good games, a lot of good efforts. And we've got a lot of guys that are going to have some really good opportunities at the next level. We're going to miss a lot of really good leadership from this team that we had, especially Will Anderson and Bryce Young, the obvious two guys that have just been, awesome team players and awesome guys that have been a part of this program. It's sad to see them go, but it's part of it. You can't stay forever.
You can't. Certainly can't.
Yeah, it's going to be. This is now we turn to soccer and we turn to our basketball program for a little
national
while,
championship in soccer. Good opportunity
yeah.
coming up after the great win against Duke on Friday, playing UCLA in the College Cup starting on Friday.
Yeah, and we got the basketball program getting a huge win over North Carolina last night. That was huge. Everybody's excited. We got Gonzaga coming in. Houston is the new #1 team in the AP poll, and we play them the next couple of weeks.
That's right.
So we've got a pretty good stretch of games going on here. This basketball program is going to be put to the test pretty early. I'm excited about it. Nate Oates has done a phenomenal job of getting some good recruits in there, and they're playing extremely well. Hopefully we can keep it up.
Yeah, it was a fun trip to Portland as I got to fill in for Chris. Wins against Michigan State, and then yesterday, #1 UNC. So that was certainly a lot of fun, and we have had a lot of fun here at Baumhower's Victory Grill in Vestavia Hills. We want to thank the fans that have been here all throughout the season. Johnny's crew really making some noise, even throwing penalty flags at us after the Tennessee game. Yeah, but we appreciate them. Also, Ethan Carabin, our video producer, getting Crimson Tide Rewind live each and every week on all of our social media outlets. Roll Tide to Ethan. Todd Robbins, our producer, doing a great job making sure we get on the radio. Otherwise, you guys will be the only ones that hear us. So we certainly appreciate him. And then, again, Cory Reamer, excellent analysis as always.
Appreciate y'all. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to fill in for Eli this year. But, again, hopefully he's back in this seat next football season with Crimson Tide Rewind. And we really look forward to what's coming up on this show. And still look forward to what's coming up for this football team.
Yeah. There's still a lot left to. We still got another game, one way or the other. We know that we've got at least one more game in us, and it's a good way to go. Send these guys out. Hopefully it's going to be somewhere in the playoff. Who knows? But we're all hopeful. We all got our fingers crossed, and if not, we got going to have a good bowl game that everybody should be excited about. It's a good opportunity. Hey, look, I was on some teams that had to go to Shreveport for Christmas for our bowl games. I guarantee you anybody on those 2006 and 2007 Alabama teams would trade the seat that we're in today to be able just waiting on to figure out what New Year's Six bowl they're going to be playing in, worst case scenario. So I don't recommend going to spending Christmas Eve and Christmas Day in Shreveport for your bowl games.
Tim Brando, please don't listen.
Yeah. Hey, it's a great place. No knock on Shreveport by any means at all. It was just you'd rather be spending Christmas here. So
that sounds good.
Yeah.
Roll Tide, Cory, and Roll Tide to everybody who's been with us this year.